For every orchestra, commissioning music is an enormously important part of the mission of the organization. Classical music is a fantastic tradition going back 400 or 500 years, but if we do not create new music, then the tradition will come to an end. On this particular occasion of the 50th anniversary, we wanted to create something special as a gift to our community. And we became aware of this anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad. On May 10, 1869, the Golden Spike was driven at Promontory Point, completing the Transcontinental Railroad.
It is without a doubt a pivotal moment in American history, just as impactful and important in the national imagination as landing a man on the moon just 100 years later.
There was a gap in our country. It was this new, amazing frontier, but to get from the east to the west in this country, you essentially had to sail around the bottom of the globe and come back up in San Francisco.
The construction of the railroad through the Sierra took months and months. And of course, the Union Pacific was constructing the railroad line from the east to westward. The Central Pacific was constructing it from the west eastward. And the Union Pacific was able to control much more length of track because they didn't have these peaks and in the Sierra Nevada to go through. They didn't have all those obstacles. So it was very difficult to construct the line through the Sierra. The Central Pacific Railroad actually named Reno after a Civil War general named Jesse Lee Reno.
The railroad, once it was completed in 1869, transformed the way Americans thought about the size of the country, the time it took to get from one coast to the other. It compressed that journey to about 7 days as opposed to 7 months. The cost for you to journey went from $1,000 to just about $100 in a heartbeat. This all changed essentially overnight.
The transcontinental completion 150 years ago was seminal to our community, and so by combining these, we're able to create a work of art that is incredibly meaningful not only to our community but to the country. Laura Jackson is a terrific partner in this kind of work. She listens widely and thinks in a way that allows her to identify the right person for the project. In this case, Zhou Tian has turned out to be the absolutely perfect composer.
I've known Joe since 2007, and I've been watching him grow over time. And it's like, you know, a great bottle of wine hits the moment, and this is exactly when I wanted to ask him.
She just asked, would you write a piece for me? And I said, yes, of course.
At this point in his growth, I felt like he would write us a wonderful, wonderful piece and also be able to give us the attention that I wanted him to give this community.
For me, the inspiration comes from everywhere. I like to get a feel of what is culturally significant for this such a big topic.
So I think this is totally inspiring experience.
Along the way, I have encountered many people and their inspiring stories. For example, the third movement of this work is called Done, and it's spelled D-O-N-E, and that was inspired by a conversation. He was a railroad worker with the Union Pacific for 30 years. And he pointed out when the two trains met in Promontory Point in Utah, one of the first nationwide telegraphs was sent to celebrate that event. And the telegraph only contains one word, and that is done, D-O-N-E. And it was sent through Morse code. And as soon as he said that, I immediately thought about, is there any way I can incorporate the rhythm of Morse code into the third movement? And it turned out to be a very exciting and musical rhythm. And I used that in the third movement as the motif for the entire third movement. So that personal experience was very meaningful and powerful to me.
Every single one of these conversations is affecting the way he's creating the piece for us.
The musical piece should basically use the power of music to convey a sense of human perseverance, a sense of spiritual bliss, and along the way pay tribute to my own cultural heritage. So I think that's the purpose of this piece. And the biggest challenge is to strike a balance that even for people who don't know anything about Transcontinental Railroad, they can still enjoy it just as a standalone piece. I hope people will find innovations and new things in this piece that they will find interesting, but at the same time, it doesn't go away from the entire tradition of the power of classical music too much. Now that the piece is finished, the baby is born, you know, and now it's off to the orchestra, to the really awesome musicians to realize for the world, you know, so it's the best feeling.
When the original idea came up to commission a work for the Reno Phil's 50th anniversary, that was exciting in and of itself, but as the conversation went on, we talked about getting more orchestras involved, and then just because of the unique structure of the project being centered around this railroad, which is a path, we thought what orchestras, what cities are along that path. And actually of the orchestras that we have signed on to play the piece, a number of them are along the railroad. And so in the same way that the Transcontinental Railroad connected our country 150 years ago, this piece in a musical way connects our country today. And I couldn't be more pleased about that.